a mad woman had begun screaming at them, "Fools! They'll kill you, fools!"
What up, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. We are currently reading Clash of Kings. I am one of your co-hosts, Nate. Joining me as always is my jerk-off of a brother, Zach.
Hey, yo.
Hey, mate.
Hey.
How you
holy
doing?
Shit.
How you doing?
All right.
You doing good?
I'm just...
You've been a son of a bitch today to me.
Oh.
Yeah, come at me, bro. Didn't expect that on air all of a sudden.
If I'm a jack off, I probably shouldn't
said
be
jerk
coming...
off.
No, jerk off.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be coming at you, bro.
Oh, that's true. Makes
So,
sense.
Watch your words,
God
boyo.
Damn it.
Anyway, weird stuff aside, we tend to sort of read Game of Thrones here.
Song of Ice and Fire.
Some of us do. God damn it.
I'm going to get you every time.
Fuck.
We're reading Clash of Kings. We are full spoilers, so if you have not joined us before,
Fuck.
this is your warning. We will ruin everything. Phagon is a thing. The baby that you think died didn't die. He's alive.
That was vaguely
Yeah, it was
spoiler,
extremely
but
big. So
you get the point.
Yeah, Rhaegar Targaryen's son that was mashed into mush. Nope.
Dashed.
Whatever. Gregor was a dick. If you've joined us before, thank you for coming back. We appreciate it. We are going to be reading Arya 2 this episode. Last episode, we read Bran 1, and it was a fucking banger of an episode.
Yeah, we got a lot of the mysticism of the North, the green seeing, the green sight, the children of the forest, the typical stuff with Bran, but it's really ramping up here in the second book a lot, and it was a really good opening chapter for Bran.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Last we had
fun.
left Arya. Arya had made it out of King's Landing after the death of her father, thanks to Yoren.
Yep, we got the recap that she was not being attacked by Yoren, but having her hair cut off.
Changed into a boy, essentially.
Yeah,
she became
so...
Arya, the orphan boy, and traveled north under the guise of joining the Night's Watch, and the plan was to drop her ass at Winterfell.
She was getting
north.
hassled by some of the boys. Then she showed them who the fuck was boss, but she got punished for it. We open with them still on their journey north. And in the last few days, the King's Road has become more and more crowded with people heading south to King's Landing.
Yeah, they were pushing hard. They'd travel dusk to dawn, dawn to dusk, past orchards and holdfasts, and at night they would camp by the light of the Red Sword, as Gendry had called it. We learned in Arya's other chapter. She could glimpse other firelights of other travelers all around them, and seemingly more camps every night popped up as traffic on the King's Road was increasing daily. So people are fleeing the devastation, as we know from the last book, that Tywin has set Gregor Clegane loose,
which she's unaware of at this
on the
point.
Riverlands to burn them from the God's Eye to the Red Fork, and that's what we're getting here. People are fleeing this destruction.
Whereas Arya's confused. She's like, why are they heading south? Why are they going to fucking King's Landing?
Yeah, why is no one else heading north like us to get away from this shithole?
Because she thinks the true catastrophe. I don't know why I had so much
Catastrophe.
Wow. Is in King's Landing. That's where the real carnage is occurring.
Which is very perceptive of a child, to realize that, like, the true horror is what's occurring there, and you should be fleeing that,
but
not running.
I also wanted to point out that I feel that's starting to show how hardwired into her the hatred for the
King's
city
Landing
is.
King's Landing equals evil. And she notes also that most of the travelers are armed, albeit poorly, but still, they are weary. And she thinks back to Sirio's teaching, look with your eyes, listen with your ears. And she's kind of starting to realize that, people are fleeing and no one's trusting of anyone anymore.
They're a much larger group than most of the others are traveling in, so nobody's kind of giving them any issues or problems.
One day, a mad woman had begun screaming at them, "Fools! They'll kill you, fools!"
So, I just wanted to mention that it's Arya calling her a mad woman. Is she mad at all? maybe she's just like, fuck, what are you people doing?
I mean,
like,
when I read Mad Woman and then read what she was like, it seemed to me like someone who was devastated by the war. Someone she loved was killed, and so she's just mad with grief. Like she's a Catelyn type character.
Yeah, because I just saw it more as like a warning to them. Like,
why are you going
from
north?
somebody
Yeah.
who's distraught from that kind of devastation. Yeah, her home being wrecked and burned.
And the next day, a man, excuse me, had offered to buy all of Yoren's wagons, but Yoren just turned and spat.
Yeah, and at like a quarter of the price,
Yeah.
too.
And it's moving forward, Arya had noticed the first grave that very same day, a small mound dug that could be no bigger than for a child. And later on, they saw a whole row fresh dug. After that, hardly a day passed without seeing another one. So, yeah, now they're beginning to see the darker side of the war, where people are being buried literally on the roadside. They're not giving, because they're dying so much, so frequently.
Yeah, and so it's that. Then there's the night, because, you know, she wakes up in the middle of the night just afraid.
For no reason she could name.
And it's quiet, and it's just a haunting time for her. She can't put her finger on it, but something's off.
Yeah, above her, the red sword shared the sky with 500,000 stars. The world felt oddly quiet, as if it were holding its breath, and the silence made her shiver.
I like that she's now referring to the comet as the title that Gendry
the red sword
gave it. Yeah.
So my thinking was, is George being a little fucky with time here? Because what if this is the night that Dany's dragons were born? And that's why she wakes up afraid for a reason she can't quite name.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was more to it.
A sky with 500,000 stars, which is how Dany and Drogo's night is described, with the red sword hanging overhead. The world felt oddly quiet, as if it were holding its breath. Like, what if this is the night the dragons came into being, and she was just kind of feeling it?
Yeah, because I was having a weirder thought because that makes a lot of sense. Where it was, in a little bit here, we'll get the story about the wolf that snatched the baby and then was hunted by the people.
If she was having a dream
if
of that
she wasn't scared because of that actually occurring in it, you know, the people chasing the wolf.
Yeah.
And she wakes up scared because she was warging.
Yeah.
And feeling that chased feeling, and is
I think
still
both are
having
valid.
the
Because either way, she fell back asleep clutching Needle, her comfort, her safety, her reminder of home. So whichever it was, either this preternatural recognition of dragons being born into the world, and just mainly, I think that would also tie into the Nymeria thing though as well. If like she's just aware because she is able to warg, she's got a bit of, like she's aware that there's a
magical
sense of
feeling,
magic.
because I really like that the whole world holding its breath.
I'm pretty sure I'll have to look and I'll double check it for next episode. We can talk about it at the small council, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the ways it's described is like the holding of its breath was released when one of the eggs cracks. Like, and it sounds like the whole world shattered type thing. So I just, awesome. I was wondering if maybe that wasn't the night the dragons came into being. But the next morning, when Parad did not awaken, she realized that it was his coughing she had missed in the night. She thinks.
So, and this, I think, is the red herring. Because even that, like, Martin makes it seem to us like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's what happened. But it pulls away from that magical aspect. But in reality, that doesn't mean that moment was any less magical or warging or dragons oriented. That it's just now got a logical reason that it could be explained away.
And so they had dug a grave of their own, burying the sellsword where he had slept. Yoren stripped him of his valuables before covering him up.
And I like that Lami then tosses in some acorns on top of the body, so that way, in hopes to grow a tree in remembrance.
The bull was given his longsword, Yoren saying that he looked like he could use it with his stocky frame. And later that night, they had stopped in a village, Yoren offering a hot meal and a bath for anyone who wanted it. Arya didn't dare, even though she was foul by this point.
Yeah, the other three boys that she seems to be friends with at this point, Lami, Hopeye, and Gendry, all do take up the bath offer.
Yeah, so they ate, and ale was being passed around, and Arya sipped hers, rather liking the taste and remembering the times her father would let them have the occasional cup of beer.
I really like the times that she does think about Sansa, not because, granted, most of them tend to be kind of conflicting and negative, but the fact that she thinks of Sansa often.
Yeah, she thinks here that Sansa preferred wine. Like, that was...
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
like, and
absolutely.
there's nothing wrong, but...
She doesn't even say it negatively. She just she remembers that, like, yeah, Father would give us the beer. I like the beer, but Sansa would always prefer a cup of wine over the beer. Like, that's just who we were.
Observation,
yeah, who we were as sisters. And it makes her sad thinking of them both. Like, and, yeah, it says that they're warned against traveling north by pretty much all of the people.
But because the innkeeper starts talking and telling them that, the countryside is being ravaged.
It's all burned up.
The men from the mountain clans are coming down. There's also talk of the Lord Wolf, or whatever the young wolf Robb Stark. At which Arya's like, oh, time to listen.
Yeah, and Yoren just says, it's nothing to us. Tully or Lannister makes no matter. The Watch takes no part. And Arya thinks, oh, Lord Tully is my grandfather. It matters to her. And so the innkeeper then mentions, yeah, the Stark boy is moving south. And Arya perks up immediately thinking Robb, and mentions the innkeeper does that. They say he rides a wolf into battle. So we're also getting the rumors around
which
Robb.
Is awesome.
And so talk turns to the wolves and how they no longer fear men. And that there's a great pack, hundreds of them, man-killers. And the one that leads them is a she-wolf, a bitch from the 7th hell. A she-wolf, Arya thinks, sloshing her beer around thoughtfully.
And then wonders if the trident is anywhere near the Red Fork where she had let
It is, dear. It is, dear.
And I think a lot of that comes with because we remember from Bran that, like, as he wargs, he starts losing himself, but then as he wakes back up, he quickly, like holding sand, starts losing what it feels like to. And even actually back when we did our Mercy reread, we discussed that, her waking up and what's her and what's the wolf, and so I think that again might allure to some of the feelings from that night with being frightened for no good reason. With the warging, like...
I really just like the image of, like, she hears a she-wolf, and then this little fucking 8-year-old girl starts sloshing her beer around thoughtfully, like, pondering, like, is that my wolf? Like, and then she gives the story of it, because we are, still early in the book, so he kind of gives the rehash of why she had to get rid of Nymeria and how she blames Joffrey for that as well, and that... Even if it was Nymeria, she probably wouldn't know me now, Arya thought. Or if she did, she would hate me. And so Arya definitely is carrying some guilt around with this wolf pack. So I think just for the future, if there is a reunion between Arya and Nymeria...
See, though, I think that's it, though. She just needs to see past the guilt, because they have that connection where it's not even about a forgiveness. Nymeria understands what happened, but it's purely Arya's own guilt clouding her from realizing that Nymeria's okay with that.
So another man speaks up and says that he had heard the hell bitch had walked into a crowded market, bold as you please, and had torn a baby from its mother's arms. Lord Mooton and his sons had tracked her to her lair and only barely escaped with their lives. But Arya blurts out, "That's a story. Wolves don't eat babies." And the man asks her, "What would you know of it, lad?" And he's a man in a green cloak, and he's got a sallow face, and he just kind of keeps harping on what she would know about these wolves.
Yeah, but Yoren kind of jabs Arya and doesn't give her an opportunity to say anything else.
Do you think the man in the green cloak is anybody?
No, I didn't really think about it, honestly. But
yeah, because at first I was like, oh, maybe this is Jaqen before, but then she walks out here in a minute. And so, I was just trying to see if he was anybody. I don't really think he is either. But yeah, Yoren grabs her, pulls her aside, and begins to shove her outside, telling her that he wants her to go get the horses watered. She needs to shut the fuck up. And she's frothing mad. But as Arya heads outside, we are going to head inside and convene our small council quick with Lady Stoneheart. So we'll let you get right back to the episode. So
we'll be back. What's up? It is small council time. Time to talk about what we normally talk about during these small council sessions. Just some catch-up stuff, some socials where you can find us. You got anything special you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, we looked it up. There was no mention of, like, the Arya, the dragons holding the world, being quiet and shit. But I still think there was a connection. But,
That's okay.
Yeah.
I still also said that it was Lami that threw acorns on top of the body, but it wasn't. It was some boy named Tarber. And
Tarber.
I didn't really
Anyway,
know that guy, yeah. So before we jump into our socials, I did want to mention that there's this book out that I've been reading, and it's really well done, and it's The Great Castles of Westeros, and it was released by @SirBuckley is what I know him as, because Twitter, and that's SERBUCKLEY, and you should check out that book. It's available on Amazon and stuff. But anyway, if you have had any interest of writing in your own inductees, or you just want to ask some questions, if you want to discuss anything in particular, you can reach us all over the internet. Our email is the best place, without manners brotherhood@gmail.com. Our Facebook, we have a group there, facebook.com/brotherhoodpodcast. Zach is on Twitter. What are you on Twitter with?
Carstark92?
Yeah. And I'm on Twitter @MannersWithout. Zach does the Instagram thing @MannersWithout. And most importantly, if you like help funding and keeping this thing going alive and well as much as it is, go to our Patreon, because we could use all the support we can
True
get.
that.
And we have some sweet bonus episodes there, sample chapters of Winds of Winter. We plan on releasing other things soon as well, but for now, those are what are up there. We're working on another one as we speak. So for few different dollar levels, there's different tiers and stuff. So yeah, check those out. You also get access to a private Facebook group. It's cool.
All right, well, Arya is about to have a very meaningful meeting, so we'll let our meeting conclude and her meeting start.
Council adjourned.
Done.
Yeah, she's like mumbling, kicking her feet.
She kicks a rock.
They don't eat babies.
She kicks a rock and it goes flying under the wagon.
Boy. Lovely boy.
One of the men in the wagon calls out to her in irons, and Arya approach warily, hand on needle's hilt, and the prisoner lifts his empty tankard and says, "A man has a thirst, wearing these heavy bracelets." He was the youngest of the three, slender, fine features, always smiling, his hair red on one side and white on the other, filthy and matted from the cage. "A man could use a bath as well," he says, noticing Arya looking at him. "A boy could make a friend."
And she says, "I have friends," but Rorge is like, I don't see no friends.
"None that I can see."
Yeah,
The bald one opened his mouth and hissed like some immense lizard, and when Arya flinched back, he opened his mouth wide and waggled his tongue at her, though it was more stump than tongue.
Gross.
Yeah, fuck this guy.
Yeah. I feel like he bit his own tongue off.
Probably. That's probably valid. Ugh.
It's wild.
And Jaqen H'ghar, as we know him, continues on saying, "A man does not choose his companions in the black cells." And something about the way he speaks reminds Arya of Syrio Forel.
Which is valid. Makes sense.
It was the same, yet different.
Yeah, because he does explain that he's from the free cities of Lothar, I believe is where it is. And so it's from the free cities, so it's similar accents, I would imagine, even if they're localized and have specific ones. She can't pick up on that kind of stuff.
So he said,
Lorath.
Yeah. He says, "These two have no courtesy. A man must ask forgiveness. You are Arya, are you not?" And Rorg jumps in and says, Lumpy head stick boy. Have care, Lorath, who'll hit you with his stick." Just being a dick. And Jaqen continues on saying, This man has the honor to be Jaqen H'ghar, once of the free city of Lorath. And this man's ill-bred companions are Rorge and Biter." And Biter hisses again at his name.
Yeah, he goes on to explain how he named Biter, because Arya's like, he has a name, like, what the hell? But he tips up his cup at the end and says, "This man is sad, he weeps, he wishes he could drink more." And Rorge fucking chucks his cup at her. And he's like, "Get us more beer, bitch." I think he calls her Pimple, but, same fucking difference, because he's an asshole.
Yeah, so Arya, trying to remind herself that they're chained up and they can't hurt her, tells him, "You shut up. and thinks, what would Syrio do? And she draws her practice sword. And Rorge says, come closer, and I'll shove that stick up your bunghole and fuck you bloody.
I don't like Rorge.
I don't like Rorge either. And Arya thinks fear cuts deeper than swords, and she made herself approach every step harder than the last. And she thinks fierce as a wolverine, calm as still water. Syrio wouldn't be afraid. And Arya was close enough to touch the wagon when Biter lurched to his feet and grabbed for her, manacles bringing his hands up short, half a foot from her face.
Bonk.
He hissed, and she hit him hard right between the eyes.
Yeah, she whacked him.
So, like, this is like a jump scare moment in a movie, and
absolutely.
like she doesn't give a shit, man. Like he gets half a foot from her face, those hands.
Yeah,
and
she
like,
just lurches
nah.
forward and yocks him.
And so screaming, Biter reels back and pulls on his chains, his huge hands groping for her. But finally, he collapses backwards, blood weeping from the sores on his cheeks.
A boy has more courage than sense, Jaqen H'ghar notices.
Arya begins backing up until a hand comes down on her
And this
shoulder.
is the other jump scare. This is what
And
she
she
turns
whips
around to
around.
fucking whack him, but then you see that it's just Gendry.
It's the fucking stud. All right,
the
so
bull.
like, let's paint this saucy picture.
It's Fred from Scooby-Doo grabbing onto Daphne's shoulder.
is just getting out of the bathhouse. He's wrapped in a towel.
Most like.
His hair is damp and just huskily falling down over his eyes, and his abs are fucking dewy moist. And Arya is loving it. And
I think you're loving it.
he asks what she's doing, and he says that Yoren said not to go near those three. And Arya, they don't scare me. And he says, then you're stupid. They scare me. And says, let's get away from them. Sexual tension. So Arya followed the bull around to the front of the inn where more of their companions are kind of sitting around just drinking and eating. And
she's like, let's fucking box, bitch. Like,
Yeah.
let's fucking do this. And then he's like, no, I'd hurt you. And she's like, no, you won't.
Yeah, you don't know how strong I am.
You don't know how quick I am.
And he kind of laughs it off and says, you're asking for it, Arya. And he drew Parad's longsword. And he shook his head, just kind of disbelief, and says, promise not to cry if I cut you.
Yeah, because he says, it might not be, it might be cheap steel, but it's real steel. And she pulls out needle, and she's like, well, this is Castle Forge, so it's even realer. So fucking
So
suck
I'll
it.
promise if you will. And she slides into a water dancer stance.
But he's like, shit, dog.
Yeah, he's staring at something over her shoulder, the third jump scare.
Yeah.
And she turns and notices that some gold cloaks are riding up. And Arya thinks it can't be.
Oh, fuck. 'Cause she thinks they're immediately, the queen has sent them after her.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. And so she grabs him by the hand, and they, like two teens in love, start sprinting into the woods.
Yeah.
No, they duck behind a hedge.
As the Six Kings guards drew up in front of the inn, and Arya thinks, look with your eyes, and thinks that his serious voice seemed to whisper to her. Calm as still water, yeah, she draws the bull behind the hedge.
Yeah, and the leader of the group comes up and is, are you the group headed for the Night's Watch that left King's Landing? And they're like, might be. What of it?
We have a warrant for a certain boy, and Yoren steps out of the inn, fucking Wild West style.
Yeah,
chewing his sour leaf. Who is it that wants this boy? And the gold cloaks dismount, and Arya and Gendry begin talking, and she's basically telling him to shut up. He asks why they're hiding, and she says, it's me they want. You be quiet.
The fuck you mean they want
And so
you?
the gold cloak goes on saying, it's the queen who wants the boy, old man, and he presents the warrant out. And behind the hedge, Gendry shakes his head, saying, why would the queen want you? And Yoren looks at the warrant and says, pretty, but these boys are in the Night's Watch now, beyond the reach of kings and queens.
So sucks to suck is basically what you're saying.
Sucks to suck.
And he's like, the queen doesn't care. She will have the boy. And Yoren's like, dude, there's laws. Like, she can't have him. That's just how it goes.
Considers dipping. She's like, yeah, I could run, but I probably wouldn't get far, because they got horses.
And the gold cloak draws his sword, and he goes, I have the law right here. And Yoren's like, no, that's not the law. That's just a sword. Happens. I've got one as well. And God, fucking Yoren's such a badass.
And the others
man.
in their group began picking up weapons as well.
Well, because first the gold cloak's like, old man, I've also got 5 men. And Yoren's like, I've got 30.
Yeah, and they all start grabbing pitchforks. Yeah,
because one dude laughs and who's gonna die first? And they're not just picking up the weapons. They're like, I'll be the first to die, and they're like, no, me. No, I'll do it. Huzzah! And the last one to do it is fucking Hot Pie, and he picks a rock up. And granted, he's like, I guess I'll die first.
Yeah.
But, like, then Arya, because she still assumes that they're after her. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yo, he's willing to die for me? Like,
I'm not having a repeat of Syrio
what the hell?
On my conscience. Yeah, so she shoved through the hedge.
Yeah, because as they're yelling at the group, none of you know how to fight. You don't know what the hell you're doing. And she's, I can fight. Me. I can do it.
Yeah, they kind of laugh at her, and then she doesn't really understand why they're not coming to seize her until the bull comes out behind her, and the gold cloak shoves his sword at Gendry and says, he's the one we want. But
they were too busy looking at Gendry.
Yeah.
And fucking Yoren, quick as a snake, puts his sword straight up to this guard's throat, and he's like, that's enough of that. We're done. Drop your sword. You'll be taking neither.
The gold cloak does, after a minute of thinking, and Yoren says, we'll keep that. Good steel's hard to find on the wall. And the gold cloaks begin to mount up, and scurry, he tells him, scurry up to the wall, old man, for when I return, I'll have your head along with that boy. And the gold cloaks turn and ride off.
Yeah, so they ride off. Hot Pie starts whooping out, cheering and shit, and Yoren's like, shut the fuck up, you little dumbass. Like,
but you can have the sword.
Yeah, you can have the sword. He does give him the sword. He tells him, it's funny, he says, don't hit Ari with it. Mm-hmm. But then he's like, they're not done. They'll be coming back. We need to dip now. And so he gets them all worked up and ready to go and be leaving.
Arya asks, because he approaches, he goes up to Arya and Gendry specifically, and Arya asks why they would want the bull. And
why would they want to gut a rat like you?
Yeah, and Gendry asks the same, and she says, who are you? And he says, I'm Gendry.
So yeah, and for the first time readers, this is the first point where you learn that this is the same boy that Ned had visited. Yeah. But obviously we've been talking about Gendry for
and so Yoren tells them that, when they leave, you two will ride in front, and
on the horses, no longer on the donkeys.
Yeah, at any sight of a gold cloak, you ride for the wall like a dragon's on your tail. The rest of us don't mean spit to them. And Arya says, except to you. He said he'd have your head.
And he says, if they can take it, they can have it. That's not the quote, but it's still a fucking fun line.
If he can get it off my shoulder, welcome to it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
But Yoren's a badass.
He's such a fucking badass.
But, yeah, no, so now they got gold cloaks trying to sniff out Gendry.
Yeah.
At Joffrey's behest? Cersei's behest?
Cersei's
So
behest.
then Cersei isn't the one who tried to get him out of King's Landing.
True. I would imagine it would be Joffrey's or Cersei's behest, trying to clear out the bastards.
I mean, he said it was the queen, yeah.
Because she would have been aware of that bastard,
so then
I'm sure.
Might have been Varys saying, hold up, I also got a boy for you.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
starts
absolutely.
going to the wall. But anyway, it was a really good Arya too, with ramping up the tension with her, making it now
a chase.
More of a chase than just a journey north. She's got someone, she's got agents of the Queen and Joffrey fucking on their tail, looking for Gendry, who she now,
assumes
likes
and
is
she's
close
a friend
to,
with,
but also assumes they'll find out about her, which is a very real danger. So, you got an inductee?
I have a few I'd like to go with. I think I can't help but give it to Yoren. And not just in this, he's always kind of just taken that, no, I'm with the Night's Watch. He was cool with Tyrion in, he kind of just fell back when Catelyn took Tyrion at the crossroads way back when.
Yeah, because he couldn't.
And so, but he also raced down to inform Ned.
Yeah.
He saved Arya, he's done all that shit. But then in this chapter specifically, he steps up and he's like, what are you going to do? No. The law states that they are now members of the Night's Watch. That's how it's always worked.
Yeah.
And then when they're still trying to run their mouth, he shows how capable and dangerous he is.
That's why I think we like Yoren a lot, is because at first he's doing everything for Arya, and we're like, we like Arya. But then in this one, he's doing this for Gendry. You're not taking the boy.
Right.
He is one of the few people in the realm who is a decent moral guy.
And that's the cool thing.
He helps Arya out of the city.
It's not because Gendry's birth or anything like that. It's because technically at this point, Gendry actually is a member of the Night's Watch.
And
he's standing up for his brother and what's right.
Yeah.
And so I like also that the line he said to the guard that when he says, well, we'll kill you, he said, better men than you have tried.
Yeah.
And it just, like, fuck, this dude's just a grizzled,
Yoren
badass
is capable.
dude.
Like, he's
and
absolutely
so
capable.
I really liked when George used the words quick as a snake. Granted, it's coming from Arya's point of view, but for her, having learned with Syrio and watched to apply that to him, where he just fucking whips right up behind and gets that sword up behind his throat. So yeah, I got to give it to Yoren this time for standing up for what's right and what his system falls under.
Yeah, mine was gonna be Yoren, but I'll do Gendry just for like I really do as much as I was being a fuck about it. Like I really do enjoy the relationship that's developing between them. I can see why there's theories that there could potentially be a relationship developing between them at some point, but to me, it seems more sibling-esque. Like, she definitely, I think, is applying some Jon to Gendry.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's more meant to be inferred than any sexual tension or anything.
At this point, I think she's so young that's it definitely, especially after she undergoes some training in the future, if they re-encounter later on.
I really hope they do.
They're definitely, I could absolutely see and understand a sexual relationship between the two.
But it's just, he's a decent kid who just like has no fucking clue what's going on.
Right.
Like all of a sudden he's just going to the wall.
That's why it's okay right now.
And then he's got this little
sibling.
hothead lordlings, the Hand's daughter, the former Hand's daughter, Arya, this fugitive now, who's in disguise as little Arya, challenging him to fight, like, because she's all fired up. And he's just kind of like, sure,
what the hell?
I'm probably going to hurt you. And then all of a sudden there's gold cloaks who are like, we want the boy. And he's like, oh, I'm just Gendry. Oh, I just hit shit and forge shit. Like,
I just make metal.
And yeah, so I really like I don't know, it's interesting that Arya ends up, the people on Arya's journey that she befriends and like, because even I thought about giving it to Hot Pie for a minute, because like the way he did, he waited until
it was
else
but
did,
it was a very Samwell Tarly-esque moment, where like it's this cowardly, bully kid that just fights when he knows he's got an advantage.
But I've got a group who is willing to fight with now,
but it's also partially him
too.
accepting his fate as these are my brothers.
Yeah,
I want
that's
to
what I
join
mean.
in on this, but
like,
absolutely,
I will join this band of brothers because what else have I got? But at least I've got a group to fight with, type thing. I don't think if it was just Arya, Gendry, and Hot Pie on the road, he'd be like, I'll fight for Arya yet. But
yeah, so that's Arya 2.
Yeah.
And if you have your own inductees for that, send them on into us. Otherwise, next chapter we're reading will be Jon 1. We're heading to the Wall for the first time.
We're going to be preparing to head north of the Wall for the first time. And so that's going to be good stuff. We get a lot of interesting discussion between Sam and Mormont. So yeah, heading back up north of the Wall.
It's gonna be cool.
Please write us in. Let us know your inductees for that. After Jon 1, we go to Catelyn 1, and so that will be exciting as well.
Rolling right into some first point of views for the Clash of Kings.
And yeah, we're loving the fuck out of Clash of Kings. So enjoy
and we're
it with
just
us.
starting.
Yeah, we're just getting the foundation. So
Blackwater.
Yeah, we're chugging forward.
Here we go.
All right, join us next time for Jon 1, and we will catch you there.
Vala de Harris.
Peace.